hesitation there. Thank you so much, Chris, and to all the Salem Democrats for the opportunity to both clear my family name in Salem for any of my brother's misgivings or shortcomings in his work for the city, and maybe more directly and more honestly, just to show you what a Downing would look like without the full head of hair that Nick gets to hold over my head from time to time. So it is great to be with you all. And like Chris said, my name is Ben Downing, and I'm running for governor to build a fairer, stronger Massachusetts. I think it's important to start here at the beginning and just call it what it is. This past year has been brutal. We've lost too many friends, family members, loved ones, neighbors, and while we're finally starting to see signs of light after so much darkness, it's important to remember that Massachusetts is hurting. Yes, because of the virus, but also because our leaders didn't prepare us for it. And that left all of us, but particularly the most vulnerable, exposed. Now, if we're going to rebuild from COVID, we need leaders who have learned the lessons behind all of that loss and pain. We need to expect more from those who serve us and be honest about how we got here. That's why I'm running. I grew up in Pittsfield, out in Western Massachusetts, a city that struggled and had to fight for itself. I know what it is to get knocked down. My city got knocked down as I was growing up. GE left, took the jobs, and we were left cleaning up and rebuilding. The message that Nick and I and our brother and sister and everyone in our generation heard was clear. Study hard and get out. The best days of your hometown are behind you. Now, I think that story sounds familiar to a lot of folks across this state, from Brockton to Fall River, Springfield, Lawrence, even parts of Boston, many other communities. Now, my family got knocked down too. When my dad and my other brother, Nate, my best friend, would have been my best man at our wedding that year, died suddenly from heart disease less than 10 years apart. They were the center of my world, my role model and my best friend. So I also know what it takes to get back up, to grow stronger at those broken places. I know what it is to have your community rally around you and hold you up when you don't know if you could stand without them. Loss shaped the kind of person that I am and the leader that I strive to be. It deepened my empathy and fueled my sense of urgency. It pushed me to run for the Senate. I got into a race with a lot of candidates who had longer resumes than me. I was dismissed like young people too often are, until I won by 243 votes. And I then had the honor to go on and represent Pittsfield, my hometown, and 51 other communities in the largest Senate district for 10 years, leading efforts to increase clean energy production, to fight poverty and hunger, to expand civil rights protections to our transgender neighbors, and much more. At the end of that time, I kept a promise I had made in that first race and term limited myself after 5 terms in the Senate. I turned down job offers to go be a lobbyist or to just hop on the other side of the desk and trade on my name. I went to work in the private sector building climate change solutions. My wife, Michaela, and I went and moved to East Boston, the neighborhood that was home to my Irish immigrant relatives, that welcomed my Irish immigrant relatives 2 generations before. Our sons Malcolm and Eamon joined us, and we learned that the only thing more renewable than solar energy is a toddler's willingness and ability to tire and terrify their parents every single day. Mm-hmm. Now, East Boston and Pittsfield are 150 miles apart, different in a million ways, but similar at the core, and similar to Salem and so many other communities across Massachusetts. Tough, striving, creative, generous places that have had to fight so much harder than they should to get the resources they need to be the communities we all know they can and should be. And that's why I'm here today, because I have seen and lived the difference that state leadership makes. I know what it feels like to be written off. I know that too many suffer when those in power think they can continuously kick the can down the road. If we're going to build a fairer, stronger Massachusetts, if we're going to recover from all this collective trauma and loss, if we're going to become the Massachusetts we know we can and should be, we need urgency, starting with our governor. For the last 6 years, Charlie Baker has squandered opportunity after opportunity to address the biggest challenges facing Massachusetts on climate, on transit, on childcare, on education, on COVID response. He has all the political capital in the world, but he hasn't spent it on our behalf. And too often our leaders have let him get away with it. We need a governor who sees, who feels, who understands the impacts of economic and racial disparities, the urgency of climate change, the consequences of healthcare inequity. Because someday, and man, I hope we are there, we are very, very close. Someday soon, COVID will be in the past. We're getting vaccines. We're starting to see our friends and our family again. But we need to remember, as excited as we are for that moment, for this to be in the past, that there are no vaccines for poverty or racism or climate change. We can't go back to the normal that failed to take them on. I'm running because I see these problems. I see the same tired old politics that let them persist. And I refuse to accept that returning to that normal is good enough. I'm running for governor because I believe our potential is limitless. I believe out of this darkness, we can build a better, brighter tomorrow for everyone, everywhere. But we can't do that if just returning to normal is our goal. We need to set our sights higher and do the hard work of building a fairer, stronger Massachusetts, where every kid, where everyone has the opportunity to make the most of their God-given talent here in this great Commonwealth. So more than anything, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with you all as we can gather together tonight. I look forward to the opportunity to answer some questions. And if I'm lucky enough to earn your trust and support over the course of this campaign, I invite you to be a part of our efforts. So I look forward to the questions, and really thank you all for the kind invite and the ability to be here with you tonight. Thanks so much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ben. Let's see. Do we have any questions? Let me just switch to gallery view. I see Rod has his hand up, so let him go first. And then I have Jeff and Julie after that.
Hello, it's a pleasure to meet you and hear of you for the first time. I'm probably not the only person on the call. I have two questions. One's an easy one, may be more thought-provoking. I don't know who your brother is. So who is this Nick guy? You know, we're not all Tommy Salem people, so that would be fun to know. And my actual question is, so you're out from Pittsfield in the western part of the state. I'd love to hear your thinking about improving transportation in the state. And where do you stand, let's say, on the, if there's a conflict between expanding South Station or instead building a north-south connection? And what about you guys out in Western Mass? Thank you.
So a couple of points there, Rod. And yeah, I shouldn't have assumed that everyone knows my brother. My brother works for Mayor Driscoll. Nick works in the transportation parking department, working on streets programs, transit issues generally in and around the city, and has now for I think we're at 3, if not 4 years at this point. So he and his wife have a couple little daughters. They love living up there, love the city. And love being a part of such a vibrant community. So that is my brother Nick, who is both more talented than me and not as follically challenged as I am. And then on transportation, first the first report that was dropped on my desk in 2007 when I was sworn into office was the then the D'Alessandro report. The then Blue Ribbon Panel Transportation Finance Commission had come out with a 2-part report. And that report, if you were to read it today, the frightening thing is how similar the diagnosis of the problem would read to where we are now. And that is despite the best efforts of Joan and many others to advocate for the type of investments that we need for our current transit system, or for our current transportation system, and then to build the transportation system we need in the future that is in line with climate change and our goals around reducing vehicle miles traveled, and that is in line with building a fairer, stronger Massachusetts, reducing barriers to using transit and connecting people with economic and educational opportunities. So how do we do that? First, the biggest part is funding, right? Clear and simple. One of the 10 to 12 plans that we will roll out as a part of my campaign will be a comprehensive tax reform plan that will enable the investments that we need to make in transportation. It'll be one of the key areas that we outline for investment in a separate policy action plan. And then along with that statewide comprehensive tax reform to fund the multi-regional projects and the shared the shared sort of common interest investments that we need to make in every part of the state. I also think we need to enable and we need to promote and create transportation districts using regional ballot initiatives to recognize the distinct regional needs, the differences between the Berkshires and the Cape, the greater Boston area. So this would align the metropolitan planning organizations with the regional transit authorities. It would then go to the voters every 3 to 5 years for their vote on a transportation plan for that district. Again, to provide the investment above and beyond the state provided baseline that we would be increasing through that broader tax reform plan. I think one of the things, having lived in Western Massachusetts, represented Western Mass and grown up there, but now having lived in the eastern part of the state and listened to my colleagues from the eastern part of the state, I think one of the things is every region of the state is convinced that someone else must be benefiting from the transportation status quo because it's so bad and it doesn't serve anyone's interest. No one can kind of wrap their head around the idea that this is this bad everywhere, which it is. It's bad when the blue line breaks down and I've got to carry Malcolm through the tunnel as we get home and we commute back from my job and from childcare. It's bad when a kid who's a student at Berkshire Community College and doesn't own a car has to turn down a job or an internship because the BRTA bus doesn't run regularly enough to get him to that opportunity or her to that opportunity. So that is how I generally think about it. When it comes to the specific trade-offs, project by project, whether it's expansion of South Station, North-South Rail Link, West-East Rail, as the folks in Western Mass like to refer to it. I think we need to do everything we can first to avoid those trade-offs, right, by making as large an investments as possible. And then I'll be 100% clear with you, Rod, and I don't want to play to the cheap seats here or just give you the answer you want to hear. Still trying to think through which of those projects will be sequenced where in this broader discussion. But happy to take any input from you all and others there.
You have any follow-up, Rod?
No, just to say I once lived in Whately.
My district didn't get that far. I think if I hung around a little bit longer, though, based on population trends, it may well have. And 52 was enough. 52 was enough for a district.
All right. So next I have Jeff, and then it'll be Julie, Senator Lovely, and Marcia.
You want to let Senator Lovely go before me? No? Okay, so a couple of things. I'm like a little kid meeting a rock star, and the few times I've met you, Ben, you were totally accessible and without ego. I was messaging with Senator Lovely a long time ago. Jeff Barsnell and I, on behalf of the Citizens Climate Lobby, met with Senator Lovely, and we talked about how at least we have Ben Downing in the Senate regarding the environment. And I want to just mention, as you know, Massachusetts used to be #1 in momentum and per capita solar. We've lost SRECs. We've lost all the rebates. In 2015, we had the fastest growing industry in Massachusetts for job creation was solar, 15,000 jobs that are down to 10,000. We are really going in the wrong direction. And so my question to you, and I know you're actually one of my environmental heroes, is what can we do when you become governor to make sure that Massachusetts gets back not only to where we were, but in a better place? Thank you.
First of all, Jeff, that's way too kind. And I think, Joan and Eileen would echo it. Any leadership role that folks like us play in either setting the laws or advocating for the right appointments. It still requires people on the ground to make it work, and your work with the Solarize campaign and others, right? Like that's what really makes the whole thing sing. we can write the perfect laws in, but you need people to do that hard work on the ground. And that's always been the exciting thing for me around climate and clean energy. It's the opportunity to engage people where they are in their community to build the future that we all know we need, and that is right there. And one of the things that I saw, I spent the last 4 years working for Nexamp, a veteran-founded Boston-based company, and it was my job to help us grow. And I would spend my time in other states setting up our teams in New York, in the Midwest, in the Mid-Atlantic, on the West Coast. And time again, I would see a sense of urgency in those states and a willingness to take on the difficult issues that, quite frankly, has been absent the last 6 years here in Massachusetts. We were able to make significant progress under Governor Patrick, working with the legislature to put in place the Green Communities Act, the Global Warming Solutions Act. And thankfully, we've got great advocates like Mike Barrett and Joan Moschino and others who are advocating to no end on the next generation climate bill. But we know Massachusetts ought to be joining the 12 to 15 other states, right, that have made a commitment to 100% clean electricity and clean energy. We ought to be joining New York and exceeding New York and making a commitment to have 50% of the benefits of that transition directed to environmental justice communities. And I don't talk about environmental justice as an abstract or because it's a thing that people are starting to talk about now. I saw that in Pittsfield, in my hometown, where neighbors, where friends, where family members, like guys on your Little League team had their backyard dug up because a company, chemically polluted their backyard and the river that ran through it. So I think the way that we get there is joining those other states, right, and making a commitment to 100% clean electricity, clean energy. You even have the international energy agencies and others coming out today saying we need to halt any and all investment in fossil fuels and rapidly make a transition to clean energy. I've got the plan to do that. And then, I've seen the work that states like New York and Illinois and others that are receiving the investment, where companies are going there and making the investments because they are on the cutting edge and leading the way. So not only is it the right thing to do for the environment, it's the right thing to do for the economy. I think I'm uniquely positioned based on my time in the Senate, based on my time in the private sector, to help us make that transition. This is the decade. This is the decade on climate. We don't get another chance to get this right and to make sure that our communities and our society that we pass on are recognizable to what they are today. So I'm excited about it, not because it's going to be easy, but because the potential is limitless if we're willing to take it on. So those are some steps, and I'll make sure to drop in the link to the climate plan that we're working on here. And I want on all policy, please, if you see things that we're missing, provide us feedback. Tell us where we've got to build off of it. Tell us where we've got to do better and do more. Thanks, Jeff. And thanks for all you do.
Excellent. So I'm thinking there's probably no follow-up from Jeff. I'm going to now go on to Julie was the next in line with the question. And I know I said in the agenda that we're going to just stop at 7:25, but I'm going to give us about 10 more minutes just to make sure we can do a couple more questions for everybody. All right, so Julie, you're up. Oh, you're muted, Julie.
Can you hear me?
You're good.
Two things, sir. One, I'm being selfish here. I'm from the Danvers Democratic Committee. We have a fundraiser every year. And I'd like to know how we can get in touch with you to invite us to it.
Yeah, I'll drop my email in the chat, and I'll drop my phone number as well, Julie. And if you've got an email or phone number, I'm happy to send it to you and happy to connect with you and would love to be there.
Well, I'm on the Democratic State Committee also.
Great.
The other thing is quick. It drives me insane that no matter what Baker screws up on, he manages to come out clean. And what can you give us that you're going to be able to really go after him and let's get the Democrats back in the governors?
So, Julie, I think the way that we do that, right, is first by learning our lessons from 2014 and 2018. In those elections, I think too often Democrats went for the bright, shiny object, right? We tried to connect Governor Baker to the National Republican Party, to Donald Trump and to Mitch McConnell. And while I understand that, Charlie Baker is not that. Now that's a low bar, right? Like to say you're not Donald Trump or you're not Mitch McConnell, that's a low bar to cross. But like, I think when we tried to make that connection, voters rightly dismissed us and too often dismissed the other arguments our candidates made. So let's separate that out and then let's go out and let's have a debate about Governor Baker's record and about the agenda that we want to go out and bring to voters across Massachusetts in all 351 cities and towns in all 14 counties. And I think that record, the record that Governor Baker has compiled over the last 6 years, is one of not using that significant political capital to improve the quality of life of those who were already, living paycheck to paycheck, already worried about how they were going to pay for childcare, healthcare, put a little bit away for their kids' college tuition, worried about how they were going to be able to get to a job with congestion and cuts to transit services, right? Worried about how they were going to be able to afford their first home or to stay in the home that they were renting already. And when we focus voters on the record when it comes to Governor Baker, I think what they realize is that sort of sky high approval rating, that's just because they've been comparing him to the mess down in Washington, right? Well, being better than bad isn't good enough here, right? Like we have all of the potential in Massachusetts to take on the big issues facing us on economic fairness, on racial justice, on climate change. And Charlie Baker has had every opportunity to do that, and he hasn't done it. As Joan would point out, no governor has had the unilateral control of our transportation system that Charlie Baker has had since the snowstorm in 2015. And what's the result of it? Continued congestion and service cuts on all transit. How can that be where we are right now? So I think the way we get there, Julie, is to focus voters on the record and to meet them where they're at, right? So I want you all, quite frankly, by this time in November, or by November of 2022, I want you all to be sick and tired of me. I don't want you to say, like, who's that guy who we're voting for this year? I want you all to say, man, like Ben was here that first time, and then he came to the Danvers event, and he was back in Salem, he was back in Danvers. We listened the first time, we saw the next policy, he was there again, showed up again. We decided we were going to work for him just because he kept showing up, and we needed to do something, right? Like, I want you all, and I want you all to then be able to do that with your friends, your family members, your neighbors, your loved ones. That's the only way that we build that campaign. So we can't assume that we're going to have anyone's support. We've got to go out there and earn it. And I think we do that by focusing voters on the record, by then laying out a clear agenda and vision for where we would go if we are lucky enough to earn their trust and support, and then building a campaign that they look at and say, all right, they're not taking donations from lobbyists, they're not taking donations from PACs, they've got a clear, bold vision that addresses the challenges facing Massachusetts families. I'm ready to go vote for them, I'm ready to donate for them, I'm ready to knock doors for them. I think that's how we do it. It's the only way I know how to run a campaign.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. And I look forward to being with you all in Danvers.
What do we?
Senator Lovely, you are next.
Thank you, Chris. I just want to tell a little story about when Ben and I were in the Senate together. So I was chair of State Administration and Regulatory Oversight with Representative Peter Kokott, who actually passed away when he was in office. He was a gentle giant of a man, an absolute bear of a man, smart, and really cared about his district. He was way out in Western Massachusetts. And so there was going to be, if you remember, and that's Pippa barking, so pardon the barking in the background. Pippa's my yellow lab, she's a year old. And so that's when the gas pipelines were being, thought about, not just thought about, very active, campaign to get these gas pipelines coming in from Pennsylvania. Fracked gas was coming to Massachusetts. And one place that it was going to go is in Otis, Massachusetts, through an old growth forest. So Peter asked me to drive out down the Mass Pike. I went out there with my chief, and I never knew that the Mass Pike went to like a country road once you hit Western Massachusetts. And we met Senator Downing out there, and we toured this old town forest. Now, why did state administration, why that committee? Because, and I think it was Algonquin Gas, correct me if I'm wrong, Ben, I think it was Algonquin Gas that wanted to expand here. And the gas company needed over 100 Article 97 petition waivers. That's when you waive Article 97, which protects our you know, our forests and our land. It's a really high bar. You need 2/3 of the legislature to be able to override an Article 97 protection. And they were looking for over 100. And Ben became a really strong advocate to make sure that we had the votes to make sure that we were not going to override not one Article 97 to allow the gas pipeline to come in. So I just wanted to share that because I drove all the way out there. I will tell you, I had a brand new respect for my Western Mass colleagues driving in hours to the State House in Boston. And that's when Ben and I really got to know each other, and such a leader in the Senate in this area, but so many areas. And Ben, just welcome to Salem. Thanks for speaking tonight. And really look forward to following your campaign. And I know you're going to work hard, and you can do it. So thanks, Ben, for coming. And I just wanted to share that because this is a real leader, as Jeff Cohen said, a rock star. Thank you.
Too kind, too kind. And there was nothing in the rule book that said that Senator Lovely had to make that ride all the way out to the extreme part of my district. And I know many folks who I served with who wouldn't have. So thank you, Joan, for being there. And I know the folks of the Berkshires have never forgotten that. And thanks for reminding me of our dear friend, Pete Cocott. Just a gentle giant in every way possible. A good man taken too soon. Taken too soon.
Thank you, Senator. So next up, I have a question from Marcia, and I think that'll probably be the last question. Yeah, take it away, Marcia.
Hey, Ben, how are you? It's been a while.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm good. I'm also, like Julie and Arthur and Marilyn, a member of the state committee. And I'm curious, this is, it's quite a long process, but you're starting early, which I think is great. So I guess one of my personal concerns as far as the Democratic Party is concerned in growing and is engaging young people, people of color, women, everything and anything, LGBTQIA. And my question is, I'm going to be blunt, you're a white guy. There's nothing wrong with being a white guy, I'm a white lady. But what can we do to engage, what's your plan to engage more diversity? If you're going to do this, are you going to make commitments to finding staff and reaching out to communities that are really, really underrepresented in the legislature, as well as, have been the hardest hit by COVID throughout the state. So I'm just really curious what your thinking is on that. And because I think that that's really important to a lot of people, especially in the Democratic Party.
Yeah, absolutely. And appreciate the question, Marcia. And it's incredibly important to me too. So, a couple of thoughts on that. First, on the campaign, one of the commitments that I've made, both at the consultant level on the campaign, then on the staff level, is that the campaign will be 50% women and people of color. And we've been able to hit that on our core consultant team that we've set up. That's been a priority in the outreach on hiring for the initial hires that we're considering right now, and will continue to be throughout the course of the campaign. So first, we're gonna practice what we preach, and we expect to be held to a high standard there, right? And that is a commitment that I've made from the beginning, and one that I think is critically important. Above and beyond that, right, on sort of the broader issue of what can I do at this moment as a white man to be a part of where we are right now to try to address these longstanding issues around racial justice and inequity. First, I don't presume or assume that I will have anyone's support. All I ask for is the opportunity to earn it. And how I would go about earning that support is by listening first. In the outreach in this campaign, we have prioritized reaching out to communities of color, reaching out to leaders, and especially young leaders in those communities, and hearing from them what they want to see in a campaign, not presuming that I or we have the answers, but rather hearing directly from them on the type of campaign they want to be built, and then continuing to do the same on all of the policy steps that we will take. And that is trying to show the type of leader that I hope to be, one who listens first, then takes that feedback, leads, but always keeps the voices, the experiences of those who have dealt with injustice, unlike anything I will ever know in my life, front and center in the campaign. I think that's how I conducted myself in the state Senate. That is how we will conduct this campaign. Final point on policy, you will see that equity, and in particular, the racial justice and equity, are woven into every single policy that we propose as a part of this campaign. Racial justice and equity cannot be something separate that is a sort of add-on. It has to be a core value in absolutely everything that we do. It's in the climate plan that we rolled out and the commitment to environmental justice and climate justice. It's in the economic equity plan, and it's the reason why I care so deeply about economic equity, about addressing inequality, wage and wealth gaps, because we know we live in a state where, while it's true of Suffolk County, it's true of almost every county, you have these massive gaps where African-American families' median wealth is $8, where the median wealth of a white family in Suffolk County is $247,000. And while the gap might look different in every county, that gap exists in every county. And so you will see racial justice and equity woven into every single policy proposal that we outline. So the commitment again is to practice what we preach in the campaign that we build, to listen first before we make proposals, to always put the lived experiences of those who have suffered injustice, unlike anything I know, first and foremost, and then to wrap it into every single policy that we roll out and every action that we take. And that will go on to when I am elected as governor and we build the most diverse administration in the history of Massachusetts. So I appreciate the question, Marcia. I expect to be held to the commitments that we've made, and know that they are priorities for me, and there's nothing above them.
I just wanted to thank you. That was really helpful.
Appreciate it. Thank you for the question.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ben, for coming and speaking with us today. We really appreciate it. I definitely loved your presentation, your pitch for your campaign, and your answers to the questions were definitely good in my book. So yeah, thank you so much for being willing to come and speak with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you all, and really do appreciate the opportunity to be with you. I'll share a little bit more in the chat, and I echo the comments from earlier. I look forward to the opportunity for all of us to be together. So stay safe, be well, get your shots. We're all going to be together soon.